episode of the Naina Redhu Experience. Today I am answering a photography related question that I have been asked many number of times and I have never answered. Because it's a little technical and it really depends on what you do, etc. So first I'll tell you what the question is. The question is, how do I get into a fashion week to do some photography? So this fashion week, I photographed Will's Lifestyle Fashion Week, Amazon India Fashion Week, I photographed London Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week. Pretty much similar answers for all of these. So a lot of people, it's not about being, so a lot of people think that because I go to fashion week somehow I'm a fashion photographer. But again, that goes back to the point that I keep making again and again, that as a photographer you should be comfortable shooting pretty much anything. You're a photographer, you should know how to make good photos, whether if it is fashion or wildlife. I mean, you might need a certain different type of thought process for each of those, but if you photograph any of these even once, you kind of know what to expect. So how to get into fashion week to do some photography? Okay, first of all, if you are going to be working for free, it'll be easier to get in, which doesn't mean I'm saying you should do that, because don't. The first time I photographed a fashion week was free. I photographed it because it was my first time. I was super excited. This was, I think, four years ago, and the PR agency had sent me an invite to come and attend fashion week, and I was like, I'll do you one better. Let me just go and shoot it, and can I get access? And they gave me, so the best access you can get is, used to be all access pass. It used to be like a AA or a AAA thing. And they gave me one of those, luckily. And I had access backstage, I had access to the runway, I had access to pretty much everything. Now, if you have, one of the ways to get in is that you need an invite to one of the shows, okay? If you can get an invite, which you will directly get from the designer, which means you need to have friends who work at the designer's office, or you need to have friends at the PR agency that handles the designer's PR. Then you might be able to get a pass to attend a show. Now with that pass, you can only go in at the venue at that particular time. You can't go in the morning and say, I'm going to spend the rest of the day here. Because the security guards at the gate are going to look at that pass and they're going to say, show is in the evening, come back in the evening. Or if you'll get access, you can go to the stall areas where a lot of designers set up their temporary stalls to show their latest collections. You can do that, you'll get access to that, and you can photograph there. No one's going to say you can't photograph here. So if you have a camera, you can photograph there, you can do street style, you can go into designer stalls and take photographs of their clothes there. You can ask the designer for a photograph, that can I take a picture of you. Some of them, if they don't know who you are, and especially if you're new, they might ask you, who are you photographing for, where is this photo going to appear, and things like that. Be prepared with your business cards. It's nice to have a business card. So, which goes back to the main point that if you have a blog and a social media presence, then this getting into fashion week gets slightly easier. Not very easy, but slightly easier. Because then you're bringing something to the table. It's not just you saying, oh, I want access. You're saying, I want access in exchange for this value that I'm providing. And Fashion Week does have this whole thing about, oh, it's this thing, where only a few people get to see, and which is kind of weird. I mean, they should just democratize the whole thing. Like someone, I think Givenchy did it in New York this time, where they had an online, process where you could register, and they selected 1,500 people to publicly to come and see their show. I don't even know, it must have been quite crazy. But in fashion weeks here, for example, the capacity is nowhere near 1,500 people. And generally, if you do get that ticket to attend one show, you can't photograph the runway because guests are not allowed to use professional cameras. So you can use your phone, but you will not be allowed to do professional photography. So they look at your camera and be like, sir, ye allowed nahi hai, madam, ye allowed nahi hai, and you will have to turn it off. People still get sneaky and do it, and sometimes if someone from the management spots them, then they can be thrown out from the venue. But again, so you can, if you get that pass, then you can just go and shoot with your phone, etc. If you want to be in the press pit, which is where, you know, all the senior photographers, junior photographers, designers, photographers, PR, press photographers, blogging photographers, all those people sit there at the head of the runway. So the models walk down the runway and the photographers sit here. If you want to get there, then you need to be hired. You know, magazines hire these photographers who are, their brief is to cover every runway show and each model on the runway. That's quite boring photography if you ask me, but that's one way to do it. You don't get paid a lot of money, depends on who you're working with, but magazines don't really pay a lot. So you'll spend your entire day there covering all these shows and you'll get paid a certain amount of money. So it's a good way to get in the first time, to, you know, be like, okay, I've photographed Fashion Week, so that's there. But again, to go backstage, you also need, either it's the designer who invites you and says that, okay, if you're a blogger with a photo blog who's going to cover the show for the designer, then they might be like, okay, you know, why don't you also come backstage and take a look at the clothes up close or see the model's makeup getting done. The other way is that, you know, you could work with a makeup brand. The makeup brand that is sponsoring the Fashion Week and is doing the makeup for all the models. So, you know, their products are being used. So you can tell them that, hey, I want to do a story for you. You know, I know you are doing, you know, the makeup for this Fashion Week and I'd love to cover it on my blog and my social media. Ideally, it would be better to work out a contract because you will be providing them photos if you are providing them photos. But if this is the first time you're doing it and you're really curious and you want to see, don't give them photos. You give them coverage. But please don't give away your photos for free. You can do a few tweets here and there and say, I put it on Instagram and things like that. And a lot of brands will be more than happy to have that also, but they still don't want to make khichdi, you know, in the backstage. Because at the end of the day, there are expensive clothes there, there's expensive jewelry, models are getting dressed sometimes half naked. So they don't want like 50 people running around there. So that backstage is even more restricted than regular Fashion Week. You could work with, you know, you could approach a designer and say, hey, you're doing a show, so I want to come and, you know, shoot it for you. This is my portfolio, or this is the kind of work that I've done, and can I come and shoot it? Now, designers internationally are notorious for paying nothing. They might, obviously that's a generalization, not all of them. There are some who are extremely professional, but they're literally, I can count them like one. But most of the others will be like, Aajao, kar lo shoot. You know, so you can, again, you might get access because if you're young, you have a limited portfolio, you have a new blog, you've just started on social media, they'll be like, okay, we'll give you access, come shoot it for us. But again, don't give them photos. Maybe you can give them some social media coverage and say, okay, so-and-so designer's website, you know, sorry, so-and-so designer show I covered and this is the social media coverage, etc. You cannot, so a lot of people think that you can actually go to FDCI, which is the Fashion Design Council of India, and they will give you access. It doesn't work like that. The FDCI has little to do with giving access or hiring or etc. They don't hire. They're an organizing body, governing body. So your best bet is either PR agencies, so the PR agency that handles the Fashion Week. And please, you can Google all this, so don't ask me for specifics, I'll slap you. You can Google for this, a PR agency that handles Fashion Week, the title sponsors, the PR agency that handles the title sponsors, and then you get down to PR agencies for each and every designer. So you need to reach out to a lot of people and someone will say, okay, fine, come. You know, we like your work, whatever, even if it's personal projects or even if they're just flower photos and they're like, acha, yeah, this is nice, come, do it for us. Eventually you should be able to get to a point where you're getting paid for it, if that's what you want to do. But if it's just access, you just want to get in and see, you can just get one invite and you can go and see what it's like and you'll get an idea and maybe you'll meet some people and you'll be able to say, okay, hey, you know, here's my card and I'd love to come and cover it for you the next time. So it's not that you just land up one day and suddenly you're getting paid work. It's not going to happen. It's going to take some time. The other thing is, you know, if you're friends with a model, or you could also get in because they could get you a pass without you having to go to or approach a designer. A lot of designers, especially in Delhi, have a lot of stores. You could go to the stores of the designers and have talk to them there and be like, okay, I want to cover your show next time at Fashion Week. There are so many ways of doing it. I mean, and if you have a blog, blog and social media PR agencies are more than happy to get you on board so that they get some coverage. Now, obviously, they won't do it for someone who has like a month-old blog or 2-month-old blog. So start a blog, start blogging, have a photo blog, have a presence on Instagram. How are you showing your work? Because if they don't see your work, no one's going to get you in, because how do they know what value you're providing? So in exchange for that access, there needs to be value that you bring to the table. There are lots of other kinds. I mean, you do to get in. So even if you have that one, invite to one show, you can get into the main gate and then you can just stand and shoot street style, for example. That's what I do. People might come and ask you, who are you, especially if they don't recognize you, and what are you doing, who are you working for, who let you in, etc. For someone like me, people wave at me, people know who I am, they don't come and question me, what are you doing? I've been shooting street style for like some years now. But if you're going in for the first time, maybe if you have a friend who's been doing it for a while, maybe you can just tag along with them. There are media bands that you get, which will give you access to some of the media areas. So it really depends on what approach you're going to use. As a photographer, your best bet is to go via a publication, or like a magazine or a newspaper, or for example, if it's a Delhi Fashion Week, a website in Bombay wants content and they'll be like, oh, we need a photographer in Delhi, can you go and cover Fashion Week for us? So they will give you the passes or the accreditation. Fashion weeks abroad no longer have the whole accreditation scene. Like here in Delhi, what happens is that for example, I get an accreditation which says, I'll be covering it on naina.co, which is my website, and then I have access to all the 5 days, and I can go to all the shows. And I generally have a marked seat which says this is naina.co, and I go and sit there. If you have like one of those passes only, then you might actually be standing right in the end. I prefer not to sit in the press pit, but I could do that as well, but I don't like doing that because it's boring photography. What's the point? There are 50 photographers already doing that. Yeah, I mean, if as a photographer, that's the best way to do it if you want to be in the press pit. But otherwise, if you want to approach it like a media thing, if you're working at a publication, then you can tell your boss that, hey, I want to cover Fashion Week. Is this a story that we can do? And if there is interest, then they'll get you a pass or an accreditation. So you get that full 5-day accreditation, but that takes a while. Nobody's just going to give it to you unless you're bringing value to the table, like I said. Abroad, I've done London and New York. You don't. There's no accreditation for all 5 days or all the 100 shows. Okay, you have to write to each designer's PR separately. Okay, and you can send them links to other fashion weeks that you've covered. So I had India Fashion Week that I had covered earlier, and so when I said London Fashion Week, hey, this is what I've done earlier, and I just want to come and cover it for my blog as an experience. So you won't get, again, access to the press pit. Again, in London it was still easier. I could just go and I just stood in the press pit. No one told me to get out of there. In New York, although I had passes to attend all these so many shows, I couldn't stand in the press pit unless I had a separate press badge. So in London it was fine, not in New York, and maybe in London also it's changed because London Fashion Week I shot in 2013, New York Fashion Week I just shot in 2015. So maybe 2 years things have changed, I'm not sure. And again, because if nobody really knows you, they are going to base whether they want to invite you or not on the basis of your previous work. So if you don't have previous work, obviously the chances of you getting in drop. Again, I was able to shoot those things as a blogger, as a social media influencer and a photographer. But unless, there's like Getty Images even wrote to me saying, we'd like you, are you going to be covering Germany Fashion Week? Are you going there? And I said, sure, I could go if you're going to pay for my tickets and if you're going to give me access and if you're going to hire me. And Getty Images was like, no, you go shoot it at your own expense and then we'll see what images we want. I'm like, what the fuck? That's not how shit works. I mean, what? Just because they're a large image agency, they can do whatever they want, I guess. I don't know. I didn't want to work like that, so that didn't happen. There are lots of ways of doing it. If you just want access and you want to work your ass off for free, easier to get in. If you're someone like me who's like, I'm not doing this unless there's work involved, a lot harder. And, if you want to get paid, way more harder. And yeah, I mean, approaching designers I don't think is a good idea. Usually, you know, unless they're you want to sell them images, then you can say, okay, this is how much I charge. You won't get paid a lot. Like I know people who've been paid $5,000 for covering a show, runway and backstage for the designer, and the images were given. I know people who've been paid $25,000 also, and then there are people like me who charge like way more than that. Otherwise, I don't do it. So it really depends on where you're approaching it from. This Noida electricity. Okay. So yeah, I think that kind of gives you a good overview on how to get into fashion weeks. I've never been to Lakme Fashion Week, so I'm not sure how it works there. But because it's India, I'm guessing it's pretty much the same accreditation 5 days in. Now, I've been doing it for a while, so I can say that callously. But if you're going to be doing this the first time, it's not going to be so easy. They're going to ask you, who are you? Why do you want, you know, an invite? What are you going to do with it? And there are those rules to follow, that you have to write the brand's name. You have to write, you know, Amazon India Fashion Week, Spring Summer 2016, everywhere, because that you're giving them credit, because that's the event that has happened. Okay, so I think that answers it pretty much, how to get into Fashion Week and do some photography. If you have some specific questions, you can always leave a comment below and I'll try to answer it right then and there. Thanks for listening. Bye.